She said it softly, almost like she didn't mean to let it out. "Don't tell my husband you were here this long." The words hung between us like a slow exhale, too fragile to touch. I didn't answer. I couldn't. The air in her kitchen was thick with the scent of coffee that had gone cold an hour ago, and the hum of the refrigerator sounded louder than it should have. She leaned against the counter, one hand resting on the edge, the other absently tracing the rim of her cup. Elise. That's her name. Or maybe it's the way she says it, calm, deliberate, as if she's learned how to make silence listen to her. She was my neighbor for 6 months before I ever said more than a polite good morning. I used to hear the faint sound of music drifting from her window, low jazz, mostly, and wonder what kind of woman keeps her lights dim even at noon. Today was the first time I'd stepped inside her house. It started simple. She'd locked herself out, or said she had, and I offered to help with the spare key she'd hidden under a cracked flower pot. But then she'd invited me in for coffee, and that invitation stretched into something unplanned, like a song that refuses to end where it should. She laughed once, softly, under her breath, when I spilled a little sugar on the counter. "You're nervous," she said. It wasn't a question. I told her I wasn't. She smiled like she didn't believe me. Her kitchen was warm, too warm. The sunlight through the half-drawn curtains made the dust glow like small sparks in the air. I kept noticing the smallest things, how she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, how her wrist moved when she stirred her cup, how she looked at me for a second too long before glancing away. I didn't know what she wanted from me. Maybe she didn't know either. "I forget how long it's been since I've just talked to someone," she said finally. Her voice had that half-laughing, half-breaking tone people get when they say something too honest. I nodded. "You talk to people all the time, don't you?" "Not really," she said. "I talk at them." She turned toward the window then, and the light fell across her shoulder. I remember thinking that she looked both older and younger at once. The way time leaves traces but doesn't erase beauty. She glanced back, caught me looking, and instead of pulling away, she tilted her head slightly. A question, unspoken. I moved to rinse the cups just to do something with my hands. She stepped closer, reaching past me to grab a towel, her arm brushing mine. Not an accident. Or maybe it was. My pulse stuttered. "You should probably go," she said, her voice quiet now. "It's getting late." But neither of us moved. The clock ticked twice. Then she whispered, "You've been here almost 2 hours." I swallowed. "Does it matter?" Her eyes flicked toward the door, then back to me. "It might." The towel slipped from her hand. I bent to pick it up. When I stood, she was closer than before. Close enough that I could smell the faint trace of vanilla and rain on her skin. Her breath caught, or maybe it was mine. Outside, a car door slammed. Her body stiffened. She looked at me then, really looked, the kind of look that burns something permanent into you, and said the thing I'd be replaying long after I left her house. "Don't tell my husband you were here this long." I didn't see her for 3 days after that night. Every time I passed her window, the curtains were drawn tight, the faint glow behind them making it worse somehow, like the house was awake but pretending to sleep. I told myself I didn't care. Then I found myself pausing at the mailbox longer than necessary, just to listen for the sound of her door opening. When she finally appeared, it was a gray afternoon, the kind that flattens all color. She was carrying a paper bag from the market, her hair pulled back loosely, a few strands sticking to her cheek from the drizzle. I offered to help, and she hesitated before handing me the bag, the briefest touch of her fingers against mine, light as static. "Thank you," she said, her voice a little distant. "I've been meaning to apologize for the other day." "There's nothing to apologize for." "There is," she said. "I shouldn't have kept you that long." She said it like she was testing how it sounded now, as if repeating it made it less dangerous. Inside, the house smelled faintly of rain and the faint musk of books left open too long. I followed her into the kitchen again. The same one, same light, but different somehow. Softer. She set the bag down and brushed her hands on her jeans. "Do you always help your neighbors like this?" she asked. "Only the ones who lock themselves out twice in a week." She laughed, and the tension cracked open for a second. Then it closed again. I noticed the framed photos along the counter this time. A man in a suit, smiling too perfectly his arm around her at a beach. Her husband, obviously. I looked away before she could notice, but she did anyway. You can ask, she said. Ask what? If he's around much. I didn't. She answered anyway. He works abroad. It's easier that way. Easier. The word landed strange, like she'd used it before to explain something heavier. She reached past me for a glass, her shoulder brushing my chest. The scent of her hair, citrus and rain, pulled me closer before I could stop it. She turned, close enough that her breath skimmed my neck. For a moment, neither of us moved. Her voice dropped, barely more than a whisper. You're young enough to know better than to look at me like that. I wasn't, she smiled faintly. You were. Something in me wanted to step back, but I didn't. She reached up, fingertips ghosting across the sleeve of my shirt, as if smoothing out a wrinkle that wasn't there. It was nothing, and everything. Thank you for the help, she said finally. I'll manage the rest. Her tone said I should go. Her eyes didn't. I nodded, stepping toward the door, but before I could open it, she said quietly, Noah. It was the first time she'd said my name. The sound of it, soft, careful, stayed in the room after I left. Outside, the rain had stopped. I didn't look back, but I knew she was still standing there, watching. The next time it happened, it wasn't planned. It never was with her. I'd gone to return a book, something she'd lent me weeks before, and told myself I'd leave it at her door. But she opened it before I could knock. Noah, she said, as if my name surprised her. You're early. I didn't know I was expected, I said. Her smile was small, almost guilty. You never are? Come. The house was filled with soft light this time. Late afternoon, the hour when everything looks honest and tired. A half-folded laundry basket sat on the couch. Music played faintly from her phone. Something about it felt too domestic, like I'd stepped into a memory that didn't belong to me. She poured wine. One glass, she said, lifting an eyebrow. To make up for my rudeness the other day. You weren't rude. I was afraid you'd think I was. Her fingers brushed mine as she handed me the glass, deliberate, unhurried. I caught the tremor that followed. She noticed that I noticed. I shouldn't have said what I said, she murmured. About your husband? Her lips parted. About you. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It pulsed between us, alive and aware. I wanted to say something, anything, but her gaze pinned me still. The room seemed smaller, the air heavier. Then, suddenly the front door clicked. She froze. I heard footsteps outside, faint, uncertain. Her hand caught my wrist. Stay quiet, she whispered. A shadow passed across the frosted glass. A neighbor, maybe, or a friend dropping by. The handle rattled once before retreating. We both exhaled, out of sync. Her grip stayed on my wrist, a heartbeat longer than necessary. When she finally let go, neither of us moved. Her voice came out unsteady. You should go before someone actually comes in. But she didn't open the door for me. Instead, she turned toward the window, her back to me. I used to think getting older made things simpler, she said quietly. Turns out it just makes you better at pretending. I stepped closer, not enough to touch, but close enough to feel the warmth from her shoulder. You don't have to pretend with me. She gave a soft, disbelieving laugh. That's exactly why I should. She turned then, too suddenly, and we were face to face, her breath brushing my chin, her hand still half lifted from the counter. I saw the question flicker there, behind her eyes. Will you move first? I didn't. She almost did. The music changed, a quiet, slow piano, and for a moment, everything else vanished. Her fingers brushed my sleeve, light as breath, then paused, curling slightly, unsure whether to hold or pull away. Her lips parted like she might speak, or was something else, but then she stepped back, just an inch, enough to make it worse. The distance between us felt unbearable. I set the glass down carefully, afraid even the sound might break what was left of the moment. She didn't look away this time, and somehow, that was closer than any kiss could have been. The rain came back that night, the kind that makes the world sound smaller. I've been trying to read, but every page blurred into thoughts of her. The wine glass she'd handed me. The way her voice cracked when she said pretending was easier. By the time I found myself outside her house again, I'd already decided I wouldn't knock. I'd just stand there, maybe leave a note. Something harmless. Something I could still explain. But then the light flicked on in her kitchen. She appeared at the window, phone pressed to her ear. Her face was tired, but softer somehow. She saw me. I know she did, yet she didn't turn away. Instead, she ended the call and opened the door. "You shouldn't be here," she said. But her voice didn't sound like warning. It sounded like surrender. "I know," I said. "I just couldn't sleep." I nodded. She stepped aside. Neither could I. The house was dim, only the hum of the lamp and the soft patter of rain. She wore a loose cardigan, sleeves rolled halfway, the scent of soap and something floral clinging to her. She poured tea this time, not wine, but her hand shook slightly as she set the cups down. "I keep thinking about that moment," she said quietly. "The other day, you looked like you were about to say something." "I was." "Then why didn't you?" I met her eyes. "Because if I did, I wouldn't have been able to stop." The air thickened. She let out a breath that wasn't quite steady, eyes darting toward the door like she remembered the world outside only now. Then, softly, almost painfully, she said, "You make me feel like I'm standing too close to a fire I lit myself." I took a slow step closer. "Then why not step back?" Her smile trembled. "Because I don't want to." She turned slightly, as if to put distance between us, but my hand rose, without thinking, to brush a strand of hair from her face. My fingers lingered too long, tracing the air near her jaw before falling away. She didn't move. Her breath came shallow, matching mine. The room smelled of rain and something sweet. Her perfume, maybe. The sound of the clock filled the silence, each tick louder than the last. "I shouldn't be here," I said. She looked at me, eyes glassy, voice barely a whisper. "Then why are you?" I didn't have an answer. Or maybe the answer was already there, in the way my hand found her wrist and how she didn't pull away. She stepped forward, just enough for her body to brush mine. I felt her breath against my neck, her heartbeat fast and uncertain through the thin layer of fabric. Her hand came up, resting against my chest, light but definite. Her lips parted. The distance between us dissolved. And then, a sharp knock at the door. She froze. We both did. The knock came again, harder this time. Her voice trembled. "Don't move." The knock didn't stop. 3 sharp hits, spaced out, too deliberate to ignore. Elise turned toward me, wide-eyed, the color drained from her face. For a moment, I thought it was her husband, the name I'd never heard but felt hovering around every silence between us. She pressed a hand to her chest, then to my arm. "Go." Through the back. I hesitated. "Who is it?" "Please," she whispered. "Just go." But I didn't move. I could see the panic flickering behind her calm. A practice calm, like she'd rehearsed this kind of moment before. Then the door opened just enough for a voice to slip in. "Elise? You home?" A woman's voice. I recognized it. The neighbor from 2 houses down, Mrs. Latham. Always watching, always knowing. Elise stepped into the hall, leaving me in the half-dark of the kitchen. My pulse hammered so loud it felt like she'd hear it through the walls. They spoke briefly, too quiet for me to make out words, only the rise and fall of tone. Then a pause. The creak of the door, closing. Silence. When she came back, her expression had changed. The fear was gone, replaced by something else. Resignation, maybe, or decision. "She saw your jacket," Elise said softly. "She's not stupid. I can explain, no. You can't. Not to her. Not to anyone." Her voice broke slightly on the last word. She moved past me toward the counter, hands shaking as she reached for her cup. But it was empty, so she just held it, gripping it too tight. "I told you he was away," she said, her back to me. "That part's true, but he's coming home next week. Early. He called this morning." I stared at her, unable to find the right words. "So what does that mean?" She turned slowly. "It means I should have stopped this before it began. But you didn't." Her eyes lifted to mine, tired, defiant. "Neither did you." The rain outside softened into a drizzle. The house felt smaller again, like the walls had leaned closer to listen. I stepped toward her. "Tell me you don't want this, and I'll walk out right now." Her hand trembled around the cup. "You think that's the problem?" "Wanting." She set the cup down too hard. It cracked. The sound startled both of us. Then she whispered, "He knows I'm lonely. He just doesn't care anymore. And you." She stopped, catching her breath. You looked at me like I was still worth looking at. I didn't realize I'd reached her until my hand brushed hers. She didn't pull away this time. He'll find out, she said, voice unsteady. Then we stop pretending before he does, I said. Her eyes searched mine, wet with something she didn't wipe away. She nodded, once, and in that moment, I couldn't tell if it meant yes or too late. Then, softly, she said, come back tomorrow. Before dark, when I went back the next day, the sky was clear for the first time in weeks. The kind of sharp, honest sunlight that makes it impossible to lie to yourself or anyone else. Her door was already open, just slightly. I didn't knock. I stepped inside, quiet as I could, like I was entering something fragile. Elise stood by the window, arms folded, her hair caught up in a loose knot. She didn't turn when she spoke. You came. You asked me to. That doesn't mean you should have. Her voice carried no edge this time, just exhaustion, the kind that settles into the bones. I thought about what you said. I told her. About pretending. She finally looked at me, steady, unreadable. And I don't want it anymore. Something flickered across her face, quick as breath. She took a step toward me, then another, until the sunlight cut between us like a line neither of us wanted to cross. You think it's that simple? She asked. No, I said, but it's real. Her eyes searched mine, as if she was trying to find a reason not to believe me. When she didn't find one, her shoulders dropped. You don't understand, she whispered. You'll wake up one day and realize I was just an escape. I moved closer, close enough to see the fine lines near her eyes, the soft tremor of her jaw. Maybe I don't want to escape. That broke something. She laughed once, a fragile, breathless sound, and then she reached for my arm, as if to push me away, but her hand stayed there. Her fingers tightened instead of letting go. I could feel her heartbeat through the space between us, fast and uneven. My hand found her waist, barely, just the fabric of her cardigan under my fingers, and she didn't move. Her head tilted slightly, her eyes falling to my mouth and back again. I told myself this was loneliness, she said softly, that it would pass. Has it? Her lips parted. No, the word hung between us, heavy and freeing at once. She leaned in, not enough for a kiss, just enough that her forehead touched mine. The air between us felt electric, trembling. She breathed out slowly, her hand sliding up to my shoulder, fingers pressing in like she needed to feel proof of something alive. If we do this, she murmured, it changes everything. It already has. We stayed like that, suspended, long enough for the world outside to fade. Then, just when I thought she'd close the distance, she stepped back. Her breath caught in her throat, but her eyes stayed locked on mine. Noah, she whispered, you should go now. I nodded, even though every part of me wanted to stay. At the door, she stopped me with one last look, not regret, not fear, just understanding. And that was the moment I knew. We'd already chosen. I didn't see her for almost a week after that night. Every evening, I caught myself waiting for a light in her window, for the faint hum of music, for anything that would tell me she was still there, still thinking of me. But the house stayed quiet. Then, one morning, her door was open again. No note, no explanation, just open like she'd left it that way for me. I stood there a long time before stepping inside. The same scent, coffee, old paper, rain-soaked air wrapped around me. She was in the living room, sitting cross-legged on the floor, sorting through a box of photos. She looked up when she heard me, a small, weary smile curving her lips. I thought you were gone, she said. I thought you wanted me to be. I did. And then I didn't. I sat down across from her. For a while, neither of us spoke. She handed me a photo, a younger version of herself, standing on a pier, wind tangled in her hair. He took this, she said, meaning her husband. It was a good day. What happened to the good days? I asked quietly. They turned into years, she said. And I stopped noticing. The honesty of it broke something open in both of us. She reached for another picture, then stopped halfway. I'm tired of pretending I don't miss being seen, she whispered. You don't have to pretend, I said. She looked at me then, really looked, and whatever she saw must have been enough because she moved closer. Her hand found mine, fingers tentative at first, then sure. The warmth of her skin felt like something I'd been waiting for without realizing it. I don't know where this goes, she said. You're younger, you've got your whole life, and right now, I said, you're part of it. She laughed softly, a tear catching the corner of her eye. You shouldn't say things like that. It'll make me believe you. I want you to. She leaned forward until her forehead rested against mine. No words, no hesitation, just the soft rhythm of our breathing, matching without effort. I felt her hand slide up, resting over my heart, steadying itself there. Maybe this is wrong, she murmured. Maybe it's just honest, I said. She smiled then, that small, careful smile I'd memorized from the beginning. When she finally spoke again, it was barely above a whisper. Stay a while. I nodded. She leaned into me, her head against my shoulder, the quiet filling the room in place of all the things we'd never said aloud. The sunlight caught the edge of her hair, and for once she didn't move away. My hand found hers again, fingers intertwining, holding, not as a promise, but as something real, something finally unhidden. And that was enough. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?